Now let's look ahead to the Premier League. The 20th Premier League darts gets underway on Thursday in Cardiff. But let's first look back. What are your favourite moments from the last 19 years of the Premier League?
I have to start with, even though it was before I was watching darts, but I've seen it so many times. Phil Taylor's 2 9-darters in the match against James Wade. It's an iconic moment. Maybe the most iconic moment in Premier League history, because there is nothing more. I don't even know what the word I'm looking for. I'll use iconic again. Sure, we'll go with it. I'll just keep using the same word. Nothing more iconic than a 9-darter to begin with. And to have the best player of all time become the first player, and in televised matches, still the only player to throw 2 in one match, was incredible. It has to be the first thing that comes to mind. But at the other end, continue using the word iconic, the other highly iconic moment was at the opposite end, with Peter Wright missing those 6 match darts to win the 2017 Premier League. Now, it's easy to forget that he had already broken his major duck. He won the UK Open over Gerwyn Price a couple months earlier. And sure, you can say, all right, there was no Phil Taylor in the event. There was no Michael van Gerwen, who was out injured in the event. And Peter Wright was the first person to say that. But he had won a major. And he beat Phil Taylor in the semifinals, a good match. And then he gets through. He's 10-9 up, 6 darts at double, left 32 after 9 in that leg. It's easy to forget that part as well. It wasn't just that he was on a double. He was nearly a perfect leg. 32 left after 9, missed 6 darts at double, and then just doesn't get off on the throw in the deciding leg. And it's something that haunted him for 2.5 years after that. That, as well as missing the darts against MVG in the final of the Champions League a year and a half later, 2 years later. But I'll mention 2 more moments as well. First, have to go with Glenn Durrant in his Premier League debut, becoming only the 3rd player ever to top the table, and then playing his worst darts of the Premier League, managing to get through and win the title on debut as well, topping the table and going on and winning it. After all the semifinal defeats he had in the PDC, to finally get one. And it really was his swan song in the PDC, because right after that he got COVID and he was never the same, and 2 years later dropped off tour. But to get that title, to become Premier League champion, was probably my favorite moment in the Premier League. Rivaled maybe only by, when you had the challengers, John Henderson in Aberdeen with the amazing walk-on in the draw against MVG. But then finally, one of the best matches in Premier League history. And there's a few, the MVG when he nearly averaged 132 against Michael Smith. Terrible last couple legs to only average 123 in the end. MVG's 115, 116 losing average. There's a few iconic ones. But one that, just with everything in the context of the match, I think is one of the best, was that Johnny Clayton Dimitri Vandenberg match in 2021. Winner take all, final day. Whoever got through would go to the semifinals. Whoever didn't would go out. And they both averaged north of a ton. It was a tight affair all the way through. But Johnny Clayton got it done 8 legs to 6 in the end. And as a result, made it to the semifinals, where he did okay. He won that. And then he did okay in the final. He won that too. But he had to beat Dimitri Vandenberg in that last league stage match just to get there. And it really cemented Johnny Clayton's status as one of the great players in world darts.
Some good picks there, and particularly that Glenn Durrant one as well, winning the title in 2020. And we've had Glenn on the show numerous times over the years, but what that chat that you had with him after winning the Premier League, the insight that he gave and how he was feeling playing that night, because I think all 4 players really did underperform on that finals night. Glenn himself, and he said how weird he felt on stage. I think he was saying about his legs felt like jelly or something like that. He really didn't feel comfortable, but that night produced one of the greatest moments of his career, winning the Premier League. And this is part of our question of the week as well, sponsored by Condor Darts. I should have mentioned that. We've got a poll on Twitter at the moment. Glenn Durrant winning the title in 2020. That is one of the options that we've put on there. 20% of the poll is going with that at the moment. MVG, the 132 to win the title in 2013, I think it was. That's got 23%. Another one of the moments that you mentioned, Phil Taylor's 2 9-darters in the final in 2010. That is leading the way, 48%. Other going with 9%. And the poll as always, is open all week, so do go and have your say. And if other is your response, then let us know what your favourite Premier League moment is. Some of our listeners have already shared theirs with us. Dom Guido saying Smith whitewashing Barney in 2018. That season of the Premier League was streamed live on Facebook here in the USA, and it was my introduction to the sport. Seeing the walk-ons and then the dazzling performance in Rotterdam, of all places, made me a fan not only of the sport but of Smith. Paul Hoy saying Barney beating Taylor and MVG in one night to win the Premier League. Watched it in Portugal and was on my 30th great night. Hashtag Barney Army. And Kevin Power, a few people going with this one. Jose de Souza, the 120 finish, 3 tops. What a moment that was as well. And I think for the Premier League, for us hardcore darts fans, if we want to call ourselves that, who watch the game all year round, this tournament is taken a bit of a bashing in the last few years with the change in format going from 10 players to 8 and the nightly tournament. It does feel more repetitive now than it's ever done. But I've got some fond memories of watching the Premier League, particularly the early years around 2008, 2009, when my granddad, he'd tape the darts for me and I'd watch it every week on replay. And I loved it as a kid back then, getting to watch a session of darts every week, seeing the best players play against each other for 3-4 months. Happy days. But fast forward to now, there is just so much more darts available and it's a lot more accessible now. And I'm not someone who's going to be watching every week. I'll tune in every now and then. I'll check out the results after, pick out some of the highlights. It does seem to drag on, but every year it does provide some highlights and memorable moments. And the 3 options on the poll, they're definitely up there. But as a Peter Wright fan, I'm going to go back to 2014, and it was Peter Wright's first year in the Premier League, and what an emergence it was for Snakebite. Got to the World Final just like Luke Littler this year, and then being thrown into the Premier League a month or so later. And this was back in the full showman Peter Wright era. He had no fear. He was bending down to throw his last dart. He was ushering the crowd for more noise on a double. For me, that's what the Premier League is all about. It's that entertainment. It's entertaining the crowd in the venue, the viewers at home. We know these 8 players, whoever they pick, you're going to get some great darts each week. But if you want to keep people watching every week, you need that little bit of something extra. And back then, around that era, 2014, you had Peter Wright, full showman mode. You had MVG, very close to being at his very best. You had Phil Taylor still high up there, Raymond van Barneveld, Gary Anderson, Adrian Lewis. It was packed with star power.